Hello, ladies and gentlemen, it's Miss Stratton. So today we're going to be starting off by looking at the properties of matter. And just as a quick refresher, matter is anything that has mass and takes up space. So anything that has mass and volume. Mass, as you remember, is just how much stuff is packed into something. And another term that we use for taking up space is volume. So not everything you encounter is made up of matter. Things like emotions, things like energy, things like that are not made up of matter, but you are made up of matter. The computer you're sitting at right now is made up of matter because it takes up space and it has mass. The air that you breathe is made up of matter. Even though we don't typically think of it as taking up space, if you've ever blown up a balloon, you know that air does in fact take up space. Has mass too, just not very much. So physical properties is any property of matter that can be observed or measured without changing the identity of the matter. So I like to say that physical properties are properties that can be observed with your senses or measured with a tool. So, if you can smell it, if you can see it, if you can put it on a scale of some kind to measure it, those are going to be things that are physical properties. Something that you can use your sense of sight to observe is color. Is it red? Is it blue? Is it purple? Is it green? Is it somewhere in between those? Color is an example of a physical property, as is solubility. Solubility is how well something dissolves in water. So things like sugar that you see here is really soluble. It dissolves easily in water. If you've ever tried to mix oil and water together, you know that oil has very low solubility. It does not dissolve in water. It's another physical property. Taste is a physical property. It's not one we like to use in the science class typically for lots of different reasons. Maybe if you're doing geology, you get to taste something to determine what it is, but that's not something we typically use. However, if you want to describe the physical properties of, an apple or something like that, taste is a good physical property to use. Density is how much matter is packed into a certain space, and we determine density by dividing mass by volume. So how much stuff divided by how much space it takes up. Something like a block of lead is really dense. Your pillow you sleep on at night is not very dense because your pillow has less matter packed into that space. The state of matter, solid, liquid, gas, plasma, those are some of your states of matter. So those are going to be physical properties because we can always change back from that. We know that water can be ice, it can be, liquid water, or it can be a gas. Those are physical properties. Odor, what does something smell like? Again, using your senses to determine physical properties. Hardness, this is how hard it is to break a piece of matter. So our hardest matter naturally existing matter that we know of is diamond, and the softest is chalk. We use the Mohs scale going from 1 to 10 to determine what those are. Texture, again, use your sense of touch. Is it hard? Is it soft? Is it bumpy? Is it smooth? Is it sticky? What is the texture of something like? The melting point, at what temperature does something go from a solid to a liquid? The boiling point, how quickly does something go from a liquid to a gas as we increase heat? There are some things that have that melt and boil, and there are some things that are just gonna, burn. So some things don't melt or boil. Luster is how shiny something is. A diamond is really, really lustrous. It's really shiny. However, a piece of cotton is not very lustrous. It's not very shiny. How conductive something is. How well does it help heat, in this case, go from one point to another? Or electricity. As far as heat, metals are really conductive of heat. And many metals really conduct electricity well. Things like styrofoam are not good conductors. They don't conduct heat. They don't conduct electricity well. So this says typically physical properties are things you can detect with your senses. Some physical properties, size, mass, volume, length, and shape, depend on the amount of substance present. We all know that if you cut something in half, the mass is going to decrease, the volume is going to decrease, the length is going to decrease, all of those things. Now, physical change. Physical change. Substances that are not altered chemically in a physical change, they just change to another phase, or they're separated or even combined. The substance is altered, but it stays the same. So when you boil a pot of water, you still have water at the end of it. It can turn back into water. However, if you burn a piece of wood, that can't be undone. That's a different kind of change. So when we freeze something, that's just a physical change. It goes from a liquid to a solid. When we cut an apple in half, the matter is still the same. That it's still made up of the same stuff. It just looks different. It's smaller. Now we're going to look at chemical properties. Now these can only be measured and observed during a chemical reaction. With our physical properties, we could measure and observe those anytime we wanted to, just by using our tools or our senses. Chemical properties are different. Things like radioactivity, oxidation state. Oxidation state has to do with gaining and losing electrons. That's going to have to be something that that's going to be a chemical property. The ability to rust. I know that we've all seen something rusting. Is it going to be, did you leave your bike out in the rain? Did you leave your grill uncovered on your porch for too long? Things like that. Does it rust? Not everything rusts. Reactivity to water. We talked a little while ago about oil and water. Oil and water, if you mix them together, literally nothing happens. They just separate out. However, if you put something like pure potassium in water, it will literally explode. So some things are really reactive with water. Some things don't react at all. Is something flammable? We know that wood is really flammable. Cotton is really flammable. Things like metals are typically not very flammable. Toxicity, is this going to have an adverse effect on your body or some of your organs or something like that? The only way to determine that is by going, seeing that interaction between, the body and whatever that substance is. Chemical properties show the potential of matter to go through chemical changes or reactions, and it can only be observed by changing the identity of the substance. So what that means is that you're going to have something different at the beginning and at the end. Once, your bike rusts, you can't unrust it. Once you have cooked that egg, it can't be uncooked. I know we've all cooked something and probably cooked it a little too long and wish we could undo it, but it can't be undone. If you've burnt your cake, the cake is burnt. That's all that can be done. All right, so that's all I've got on this one, guys. So that was some information about chemical and physical properties and a little bit about chemical and physical change. We'll get in more on that later. So hopefully that helped you better describe matter, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.